This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome to this week's edition of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. We've got a jam-packed show, a ton going on. We take 2 weeks off, and we figure we'll come back and we'll get into the road to WrestleMania, and all hell breaks loose. We've got a bunch to talk about. We've got massive signings in WWE and guys who are on the roster who help facilitate some of those deals, as well as what the potential WrestleMania 39 card may be looking like, as well as some wrestlers dealing with some injuries. We're going to get into all of that later on in the show. But of course, we're going to take a look at the biggest topics and trends in wrestling. I also want to get the Doc's number one storyline of 2022. I have an idea of what it is. Of course, we're going to take a look at AEW. We even put New Japan on the docket because Wrestle Kingdom took place this week, and it was a great show. But I think we both understand and we both know we got to kick this bad boy off with WWE. Because on January 5th, it was announced that Vince McMahon, yes, the Vincent Kennedy McMahon, is going back to WWE. And essentially, this was a hostile takeover of his own company. Doc, what was going through your mind when you heard the news late Thursday night that Vince McMahon was coming back to WWE underneath the guise to spearhead a media rights negotiation, essentially telling the board, remember, he asked the board, I believe it was back in November, if he could come back, and then rumors started circulating that he was coming back in December to take things over because he felt like he got bad advice and things would just kind of blow over and it wouldn't be as big of a deal as it was with all of the hush money that he was paid for his sexual assaults. Instead, January 5th rolls around, and he basically tells the board, look, guys, this is what's happening. You can't make this media rights deal happen. You can't go ahead with the sale of the company without me. Why? Because I am the majority stakeholder and the majority shareholder of this company. I have the right to veto anything that goes on. And if you want anything to happen, if you want this media rights deal to go down, you need to put me back on the board. And I'm bringing George Barrios, who he fired, and Michelle Wilson, who he fired, bringing them back on the board so he can facilitate anything he wants to do, thus removing 3 other people that he felt responsible for the leaked information to the Wall Street Journal. What was your take on all of this? Because my mind was blown. I was a little bit frustrated, to be honest with you. I was quite upset. I was like, man, come on, not again. He's going to come back, and you got to believe at some point he's going to try to take creative back over. He's going to try to worm his way back into everything. I was shocked. I was floored. I didn't think it was going to happen. I should have knew better because it did happen. And we are starting the year off with a bang with Vince McMahon coming back to WWE. I don't think it's been 6 months since he's been removed. What was your reaction?
Hell yeah. I was excited because Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you for being patient with us as we took some time off, got a chance to watch wrestling, watch it in a good way. I'll share with you, got some new gear to facilitate great recording. I'm loving life. Man, Mr. McMahon, we talked about it. Of course, what's he going to do? He's sitting there 6 months. That's all it takes for someone that's so busy. You got to remember, the man breathed, slept, thought about WWE his entire adult life. So you get 6 months, you're just sitting there, you're watching the ratings, they're not as great, you're seeing Triple H spend a bunch of money on new talent. He's sitting there, and everybody that's telling him is like, Vince, you could put this on the market and get $5 billion. You could get $6 billion. And he's sitting there going, is everything going the way it's supposed to be? Look, he's a control freak. Bottom line, control freaks cannot just sit by and drink Mai Tais, hang with 5 big dogs, and try and clean up, the messes of things going on all around you. Vince McMahon is somebody that needs to be in the mix. And look, at least step one, we can say they put out that he's not going to be involved in creative. This is a money ploy. This is the money. This is the thing that he probably is like, this is the cap to my career. This is the part where I get to be in the meeting rooms when we talk to the Saudis and all the people that want to put the money into the family. He wants to be involved. And it sucks for me. The part that I took away from it that bothered me was I kind of have always thought of WWE with the McMahon family. Could you imagine if this company gets sold to some conglomerate or some weird person who doesn't understand? Because we've been through this before. Ted Turner sold out, and they took a once promising company in WCW and ran it to the ground because there weren't wrestling people behind it. So my wife, look at her. My wife, Andrea, was so astute. She's like, you think Tony Khan's going to buy it? And I said, no. And she said, why not? And I said, you know what? That sounds absolutely awesome. If you're Tony Khan and you realize WWE's for sale, just buy the fucking company. But I'm not as upset as everybody because I think most people feel like the Mr. McMahon character is going to come back. This is boardroom shit. This is, I need to sell this company. I need to be in the room. I cannot let this company get sold unless I know it's going to be in the hands of somebody that will take care of it, nurture it, and make it so that this will be around. So I just think that it's not ideal to keep hearing Vince McMahon because you have so many great talent that is not now being talked about. We're starting this podcast off talking about Vince McMahon, but I do think that for somebody that put that much into it, to get booted out like that, I think was just not in the way in which you would want to leave a company if you don't feel like you had the proper exit strategy. So it's not that big a deal, cuz I think that this is a big deal because obviously there was this notion that, you know, you want to move forward, but I don't think this is the big deal. I think it's overblown.
See, my concern is I don't necessarily have a problem with him getting on the board to negotiate a media rights deal. That's fine. He's done that in the past. Things have worked out. Nick Khan helped facilitate a $1 billion deal with NBC. My concern is, at what point is that not enough for him? Going away wasn't enough for him, and he basically forced his way back onto the board and forced his way back into the company. At what point is just kind of handling what he's supposed to be handling not going to be good enough? At what point does he now jump into creative? At what point does he now start messing with the talent? You have to remember, the morale in WWE after Vince left, even the stock market, everything was at an all-time high. Everything was doing well. Everything was doing great. Morale in the company was so far up. The stock price had moved up. What we were getting on television had been great. It had been really, really good. We've been getting really good creative stories. Things have been working well. You're seeing talent get brought back that we never felt like it should have left in the first place. If Vince McMahon comes back, does all that go away? Does all that change? Because he now steps back in. He wants more power. He wants to do more things. He wants to do what he was doing. He doesn't necessarily agree with the vision that Triple H has. And that was part of the deal with NXT. Didn't agree with the vision that Triple H had. And we've seen what NXT 2.0 was. It was a complete mess. It wasn't very good. That's where my concern comes in. Do I think him taking over the board again is a little overblown? A little bit. But I think it's because people are fearful that you've already seen this happen before with him. When he gets his paws on something, the little bit that he has isn't ever enough. He always wants more. He's very much like Hitler in World War II, what started all of it, where he just kind of took over Poland and everybody's like, it'll be fine. Next thing you know, he's conquering all of Europe because he wants more. That is Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon is essentially a dictator inside of his own company that he created. And they said, look, you are not what is best for business. They told him back in November, we don't want you here. You are not good for the stock price. You are not good for the shareholders. You do not need to come back here. Remember, he still has 2 sexual assault allegations hanging over his head. What company wants to negotiate with that? What company wants to negotiate with a guy who basically, according to SEC filings, believe me, there's a ton of SEC scrutiny now with him coming back on WWE. What company wants to negotiate with a guy who has the SEC breathing down his neck, has 2 sexual assault allegations, it has been documented that he used company funds to pay off women to keep them quiet? how do you turn around? Like if you're Disney Plus, how do you turn around and do you sell that to your shareholders? It becomes really hard. This whole thing is and look, very good on Vince, very, very smart from a business standpoint, right? To be able to gear yourself back into a position of power and one, go about it politely, asking, them saying no, stay the hell away, him saying, all right, cool, I'm going to do it my way anyways, and now you have to take me back, and when you take me back, you got to take these two jabrones with me, so 3 of you MFers are out of here. Like, what a maniacal, ingenious way for Vince McMahon to facilitate himself getting back into WWE. But at the same point, I don't know if it's what's best for business. And that, I think, is where the big concern comes from. Yes. Is this really best for business? Do you think this is best for business?
It's a distraction. It's crazy, man. It is so crazy that these guys in power, especially you would think if you're Stephanie McMahon, don't you kind of take it as a slap in the face? Like, you don't trust me to sell everything. You don't, like, just go away and let me handle everything. If you're Shane McMahon, you're like, man, I couldn't weasel my way to get the trust of my dad so that I could run this company. It's just absolutely crazy that this is the news to start the year. It's absolutely crazy, especially with WrestleMania season being around the corner. You think that everything should be on the up and up moving forward, but it just seems like now the talk is going to be how soon will Vince actually take over creative and reverse everything that Triple H did. But at the same time, I do believe that, Vince would protect Triple H and Stephanie and say, hey, anybody that buys this company, you still got to have some involvement with the McMahon family, something with Triple H, because you don't want Triple H out on the free market. You don't want Triple H getting disenfranchised, So I'm fascinated to see how this all shakes out. It's such an interesting look at the power dynamic, and it's also an interesting look at Vince McMahon and his past. Does this now cause journalists to revisit all the allegations that were made? Do more women come out? Does it force Vince to actually have to get debriefed or talk about, or deposed and talk about what happened in his past? Because it's weird, because the flames were hot all around him that he was allegedly doing things that were so inappropriate sexually. Now he's already back, and it kind of seems like it's been blown over. So this is crazy. It's WrestleMania season, and this is what we're starting to talk about here in 2023. So it just kind of has a feel of more of the same. You can't.
It is nuts, man, because we're basically a week into the new year.
Yeah.
And this is the biggest thing that is broke. And this is a monumental story. I don't know if the rest of 2023 will have a story as big as this, unless something crazy happened. But to think about, you're a week into the new year, and this is what drops. This is what happens. This is how you start off the new year. Absolutely bonkers. Now, we touched on a little bit. WrestleMania season is around the corner, and I think we wanted to gear our show basically preparing for that, because the Royal Rumble is in like 3 weeks. But WrestleMania season around the corner for booking purposes. What are your thoughts on breaking up the WWE Championship and the WWE Universal Championship? There have been some conversations in the back in creative, and when we get to our news and notes segment, we are going to kind of lay out some ideas and some matches for the WrestleMania card, where those championships are no longer unified. Instead, they're separate. What are your thoughts on breaking up those titles and having them basically no longer combined? WWE did a really weird thing when they're unified, but it's always been like 2 belts, and you've had Paul Heyman walk around awkwardly holding 2 belts. One's always falling, one's always held up in place. It's been a little bit weird. We've always thought that they should just go back to the 1 belt, but they have not. So what are your thoughts on them breaking them up coming up in WrestleMania, it looks like?
See, I would be disappointed, because my vision, once Cody Rhodes showed up in the company, was he was going to be the next unified, undisputed WWE Universal Champion and then bring back the wingtip. So I want that to happen. I just think that absolutely you're right. You're spot on. Why didn't they just make 1 belt? What the hell's going on? I know it looks cool, and the visual of Roman Reigns' entrance is pretty sweet. I love seeing it. I've become trained. When he walks out, Friday Night SmackDown, my hand goes up, the number 1. I acknowledge Roman Reigns. It's a great visual, but you can do it with a sweet-ass belt. It's just, Too much. They dropped the ball, but I understand that additional champions, you can make more people. You have. I've never been a fan of the Raw SmackDown brand split. I love Roman being the champion. He's the guy. I love the Usos being the champion. They're recognized. When the show starts on SmackDown, I'm thinking, okay, should this be the night? I was going to text in the group, but I forgot. I was going to text, should Sheamus win it? It'd be maybe a great way to start the year. Sheamus and Drew winning it, and then you could set off a nice run with them, and then they can feud, and then you could have a great SummerSlam, maybe in Detroit. All that was going through my mind because you have one champion. With the women, it's too corny. You got Bianca on one show, and then you got Charlotte on another show. I like one belt across the company. So if that's the plan and they want to split it back up, it'll just be more of the same where it's wishy-washy and you don't get a clear direction. I want Cody to at least have a run being this massive one-time two-belt kind of guy.
Yeah, and look, I'm kind of in lockstep with you because we talked about this forever and a day. Like, go back to one belt and let's just have one belt basically for both brands. And if you wanted to, you can even do away with the brand split because let's be honest, with what we've been getting recently, where you've got SmackDown guys on Raw and you have Raw guys on SmackDown, it doesn't even feel like there's a brand split anymore anyways. So just go to one belt. But if you're going to have two championship belts, at some point, you do have to get both of them either off of Roman or you have to figure out a way where you can split them up. And I think what is going to end up happening is we're going to have some matches at WrestleMania where this might be the case, where Roman no longer carries two belts. We'll get into that a little bit in the news and notes, so you'll want to stick around for all of that. Now, I thought we did get some good wrestling. I mean, right now we're just talking about stories, but I did think we did get some good wrestling this week on WWE. Did think we did get some good wrestling on AEW. We kicked off WWE Monday Night Raw with a match between Bianca Belair and Alexa Bliss. What did you think of the Alexa Bliss match as a whole, and what did you think of her? We're going to call it flipping. We're going to call it her kind of being under the mind control of Bray Wyatt or Uncle Howdy. What did you make of this match, and what did you make of her reaction to I guess those beings or those powers?
See, cause I never was into it in the first place. That's what sucks. Is I like Alexa Bliss being a tough-nosed gal, a great wrestler. I'm not into the continuation of the Bray Wyatt angle and her mind control. It's just more of the same. It's not unique. It's not new. So for me, it's just something that doesn't appeal to me. It's not the best usage. I get it. It's interesting. You have this, what's the control of Alexa Bliss over Bianca? You roughed up Bianca, and the way that they did it on social media was great. To me, it was interesting that they had Bianca bleed on Monday Night Raw. I thought that added a layer of aggressiveness that you typically don't see.
She got 3 stitches for that.
Yeah, it was very unique and very good in regards to storyline. But it's just, for me personally, it's not appealing. I'm not interested in that type of story for Alexa Bliss. I think that she's so talented, and you're revisiting something that, man, cause are we ever going to get a payoff with Bray Wyatt? Are we ever going to figure out who's, the family member doing all the mind control? I think everyone's assumptions are pretty accurate in that it's a manifestation psychologically of Bray Wyatt's warped mind. But I just am not into the whole thing. I'm ready to move forward. I think Alexa Bliss is world champion caliber. The things that she can do, just being Alexa Bliss, her unique personality, the flair, the psychological warfare, it appears to be nonsense to me. It doesn't hit the spot for me.
Yeah, physically, she's unreal in the ring. I think the big issue with Alexa Bliss is there was a period there where she suffered a ton of concussions back to back to back, and I think they either rushed her back or they didn't give her the time that she needed. Well, she hasn't had a head injury in a long time. I don't necessarily think you need to do this whole Bray Wyatt angle with her again. It does feel a little bit stale. It does feel a little bit old. And honestly, this match at times was a little bit clunky, but I liked the payoff with Bianca getting thrown into the steps and then getting DDT'd into the steps. I didn't necessarily like the two guys on the outside of the ring who were supposed to be the Uncle Howdy or had the Uncle Howdy masks. There was even a security guard trying to get one guy to sit down, so he was unaware of what the hell was going on. But to me, it kind of took a little bit away from that match because that was a pretty good match. That was a really good match up until that spot. And after that, it just it felt flat. And here's the thing. At no point did the referee DQ Alexa Bliss. Go back, watch that match. Go back and watch it. You had to have Corey Graves tell you that she was DQ'd, that she was done because she attacked the referee. The referee got attacked. There was no signal for the bell to ring for the end of that match. There was no other referee who came out and DQ'd her. There was none of that. The way that match kind of ended, it was, like I said, very clunky. It was clunky with some of the wrestling, and it was clunky how it ended, and it felt very incomplete. You did have Alexa Bliss, or you did have Bianca Belair get 3 stitches in her face after eating the steel steps. So it was, I don't necessarily know if this is the best route for Alexa Bliss. I don't think this is the best way to portray her character. And I'll be honest with you, when she was with Bray Wyatt and they were doing that gimmick, I don't necessarily know if that was the best gimmick for Alexa Bliss. I don't think that was one of the more interesting characters for Alexa Bliss. I really liked Alexa Bliss when she was in the ring and she was selling her double jointed elbow in a match, I believe was against Becky Lynch. I thought that was great. I thought what she can do in the ring, she is a dynamo. She is like 4'11", and she is powerful. She is quick. She has a good look. She can cut a great promo. She can do a ton. I don't think she needs to go that direction. The direction that I think is fantastic with what WWE has been doing, Sami Zayn and the Bloodline.
Oh,
this is still the best story in WWE. This is absolutely fantastic. What you got a little bit on Monday night with Monday Night Raw and what you got on Friday night with SmackDown continues to reinforce the importance of this story in the direction that they're going. What did you think about the sudden turn to basically alienate Sami Zayn and start to begin the separation process where he is going to be removed from the bloodline? What did you think about all of this?
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. I thought that when you look at it and you see Roman Reigns questioning Sami Zayn, he's like, "Do you want to be the tribal chief? What's wrong with you?" And it starts with a loss. That's the amazing part of it, is that it starts with a loss that occurs on SmackDown. And you're like, oh, I like this. I like what I'm seeing. I like the opportunities that this could present. Who's going to turn on who? And the blessing and the way this is going is how the involvement of Kevin Owens talking shit was amazing. I loved that. Yes. Kevin Owens comes in and is like, Sammy, when you drop your balls, you can come hang out with me and hang. And, when you drop your balls and get out of Roman Reigns' way, then we have this opportunity. So I'm loving it. I love what is occurring. It's going to be eventually sad to see it, for me end, but you see the way in which Sammy has been just elevated to the heights of an amazing performer. He is, literally, to be honest, I would have laughed if Sammy said, why wouldn't I want to be the tribal chief? You're awesome. He should have, maybe the writers could have actually pumped up Roman Reigns' ego, because you're continuing to feed into this narcissist ego saying, yes, I want to be like you. I want to be right alongside you so we can take over the company. But it's great. It's, and I want to say this too. The evolution of Roman Reigns as a character, even though he's the Universal Champion now for the better part of 2.5 years, going on 3, his character development, is amazing. His kind of
been great.
Way he's apologizing, saying, you know what, I need to be a leader. The way in which he just maniacally moves through the ring so smoothly. Dude, he's got people in the palm of his hands. His music is great. It's a great delivery. The bloodline is strong. Now, them starting every show for the past couple of weeks is a little bit played out, but moving forward, you want to see Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns. You want to see where this plays out, and it was great. And the Usos are just amazing. And we're not even talking about Solo Sikoa, who is just amazingly talented and who has a presence. So the Bloodline, I love it. It's the year of the Bloodline, baby. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, it's been his evolution, like you said, basically going from a guy that the fans shit on every time he came out to now being the number one draw and the face of the company is unreal. And you're right. He's so calm. He's so cool, which is why when he sits there and he snaps on Sami Zayn and you can feel the volatility, he went to a different place. You could feel everything get ratcheted up. And Sami Zayn does a great job playing off of him. Sami Zayn, it's the body language, it's the facial expressions, it's all of it. Paul Heyman in the background holding his face being like, oh my, all of it tells a fantastic story. This is the best thing going in WWE. This is such a well-cultivated, well-told story. It is absolutely fantastic. And then you fast forward to the middle of the night where Roman Reigns calls him into the back and basically apologizes to him. Says, I'm sorry for berating you. I'm sorry for taking it out on you. Almost like an abusive dad or an abusive husband who just got done smacking their kid or smacking their wife around and is coming back with remorse saying, I'm so sorry I did that. I apologize. I promise I'm going to change. I promise it's going to be different. It's not your fault. I took everything out on you. Everything has been building, and it's just this pressure, and I feel bad that I snapped on you. It's not your fault. It was me. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a great story. I think the way that they're going about this is absolutely incredible. It almost makes me wish that WrestleMania wasn't around the corner. Almost makes me wish that Royal Rumble wasn't around the corner. Makes me wish we didn't have these pay-per-views coming up so we could build this out even more. Because I feel like right now what they're going to do is they're going to hit a fast track button, and we've got these dates, and we've got to get this story to that finish line. Whereas this story you could go on probably another 6 months and take this to SummerSlam if you really wanted to, because it has been done so damn well. It has been a long time. This is part of the fear with Vince McMahon coming back to wrap this up. That's the fear about Vince McMahon coming back, is this storyline has been so long, and Triple H stepped in and basically took it over and has made it that much better. This has been fantastic. You don't want to see this get rushed. You don't want to see this get screwed up, and you don't want to lose one of your best long-term stories that you've had in a very, very long time. I thought WWE did a really good job. I thought SmackDown was a little bit better than Raw. What was your take on WWE as a whole this week, especially with the monumental news that Vince McMahon is back?
It was a decent week for WWE. Lots to get into, lots to explore with storylines. Charlotte coming back and having a nice match.
Oh, bro, we didn't even touch on that.
Yeah, Charlotte returning.
Can I say this real quick about Charlotte, and I'll let you go on about what you're going to say about her? She looks so weird. Like, you can tell when she was away, she had some surgery done. She looks so different, and it's a little bit uncomfortable if you know what she looked like before.
Yeah, it's not natural.
And no, it's not. It's like you look at it and you're just like, it's almost like looking at a painting like by Van Gogh, and you're like, what the fuck am I looking at here? What happened? What is this? She looks so different, man. And it's not like she looks like a creature, but she doesn't look natural, like you said. She looks so plastic at this point. It's gross. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
Continue about Charlotte.
Yeah, it's just wasn't something that was appealing to me. It's more of the same.
Quick, a little background. We were planning to do a show last week. Charlotte won, and we were both like, screw it. We're done.
No, that was it.
We ripped the show up, and we're like, we'll take another week. It'll be okay.
Yeah, it'll be okay.
We were so pissed off that she won. She wasn't even back in the company for 5 freaking minutes. Disgusting.
Exactly.
Sorry, go ahead.
And it ruined what was a great SmackDown. It was good. It was amazing. Last week's SmackDown before Friday was pretty good. It had action, and then all of a sudden comes to a screeching halt. You bring back Charlotte, and not only does she get into the match, she wins the title. And I guess a lot of people are looking at it like, well, it's not Ronda, so we'll take this. But it's more of the same. It's the same thing. It's like Charlotte leaves, Charlotte comes back, she wins the title. A little bit of foreplay. My God, they just rip the clothes off and get into it. 2 minutes later, the show's done. It's like, my God, give us a little tease, a little something. Do it on the big stage. Do it at Royal Rumble, a program, something interesting, something that can actually put over Ronda Rousey, something. What did we get? More of the same. She comes in, she's the title holder. It's a shock. Oh, my God. It didn't even, to be honest, it had such the feeling of the law of diminishing return. We were just like, ugh, this sucks. It just, not what we were looking for. Because you have so many other talent that Raquel Rodriguez, why? She is the prototypical, what would appear to me to be the next fresh big thing that you could give the title to for a year and it would be special. So, yeah,
this is the thing about that match, too. It totally negated, and it made Raquel Rodriguez feel less than, because Charlotte comes out and beats Ronda in 5 minutes after Raquel Rodriguez had a really good match with her.
Great match.
You basically shit on two of your talents there.
Exactly, and it's not something I wanted to be seen again. You know, Charlotte is great. I loved her entrance this week on Raw, on SmackDown with the card. That was sweet. It had the feel of the Ric Flair swagger, but Sonya Deville match, what's next? It's interesting. We'll see who the next challenger is going to be. But yeah, obviously you and I are in the same boat. Let's move on to AEW. They had a good week too.
Yeah, AEW had a really nice week. You had a lot of wrestling from AEW. You had Dynamite on Wednesday. You had Rampage, and you had Battle of the Belts on Friday. There was a lot going on this week. If you followed anything on social media, if you listened to any podcasting, there was a lot going on between The Acclaim and Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. And Jeff Jarrett took a lot of offense because his wife took a lot of offense to what The Acclaim rapped about a couple weeks ago in their rap, basically talking about how Jeff Jarrett stole money and stole Karen Jarrett from Kurt Angle. Karen Jarrett went on to social media and basically stated that Kurt Angle had multiple affairs with multiple women, and she was basically tired of trying to keep their relationship together when it had died long before. Jeff Jarrett goes on a podcast and basically states that he's going to take some liberties with Matt Caster because of everything that he said. I want to know if you felt like that was actually the case, because in our group message, I messaged you. There was a moment where Jeff Jarrett and Anthony Bowens were in the match. In the very, very beginning, Jeff Jarrett basically blows by Anthony Bowens. They're like getting ready to do something. Blows by Anthony Bowens, goes over to Matt Caster. Matt Caster has his head down. He's looking to the crowd, and he just slaps him in the head. Next thing you know, Anthony Bowens grips up Jeff Jarrett because he told him, he's like, don't you take any liberties with Max. Just basically do the match. Like, told him this on social media. Grips him up, pushes him in the corner, grabs him by his hair, has hands at his face. And you can hear him say, the mics pick it up, you want to fuck around? You want to fuck around? And he's losing it. And he starts slapping him in the chest like he's hitting him hard. And then the referee comes in and kind of gets everything back under control. But it felt like that early stages of that match, there was some legit heat. And there was some things that were a little unscripted, and some things that happened that they basically talked about online and said, you better not do this. And they went ahead and did it anyways. What was your take on the early stages of that match? And what was your take on basically The Acclaim versus Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal? Because we didn't just get it on Dynamite. We also got it as the lead-in match on Rampage into Battle of the Belts. This was essentially the curtain jerk for Battle of the Belts. And I thought we got two really good matches from both of these.
Yeah, it was great. I loved every second of it. I thought it was really, when you look at it, when you look at how this was shaking out, it's great. I mean, if there's a little bit of reality to it, a little bit of real heat to it, Max Caster, it was awesome. I loved every second of it. I thought that Max Caster's rap at the beginning of Dynamite was among some of the best stuff that he did, also bringing in some controversy internationally. So, man, it was good. Jeff Jarrett, for whatever reason, people just love to hate him, and it's great. He's got that personality where he kind of has that bridge of the representation of WWE, and maybe in some way that's the kind of angle that they're doing it. Is this played out old guy, but he brings heat, and that's what is amazing about it. So I look at it and I'm impressed, and this is great. This is how you optimally enhance what Max Caster and the Acclaimed can do, and it's great. AEW, Acclaimed every Wednesday. What a great sign, and they're getting better in the ring. The use of Billy Gunn has been epic. They've had a good run, and I thought at first maybe taking the title off of them might have been cool and to piss people off, but they played it up in regards to the swerve and having the Acclaimed reclaim the title. So I'm okay with it. I thought it was a great week for both, and I loved the discussion from Max Caster about TNA and Dixie Carter. It was a bunch of good inside information, so I was impressed with it.
Yeah, he's done a fantastic job with dropping little knowledge tidbits. If you followed wrestling for a long time, the stuff that he works into his raps is incredibly interesting. And you can tell some of the stuff he says really does get Jeff Jarrett to bristle. It really does upset him. And I think that's fantastic. I thought what we got from the Acclaim, I thought what we got from Jeff Jarrett, I thought what we got from Sanjay Dutt, Jay Lethal. I thought all of this was really fantastic this entire week. I thought it was really good. Like I said, I did feel like Jeff Jarrett took some liberties with Matt Caster in that match at the very, very beginning, but things did get ironed out. What did you think about Darby Allin winning the TNT Championship for the second time? This was weird. To me, this felt like this was the direction we were going leading into this week's Dynamite. I don't know how I really feel about it because I felt like Samoa Joe had one of his best matches in this match against Darby Allin. I felt like this really hamstrung and made you look at Wardlow's run a little bit differently. I don't know if Darby Allin is the TNT champion that I necessarily want. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this. What was your takeaway from Darby Allin beating Samoa Joe for the TNT championship?
I thought it was the wrong move. Absolutely was the wrong move. I thought that from the way in which Samoa Joe was presented, you just have him come off this beastly performance, this epic performance against Wardlow, right? You elevated Samoa Joe. It was great. Most people would have maybe considered putting the title back on Wardlow. And now we sit here, and I thought it was going to be easy. You squish Darby Allin. You maybe set up the next angle. Sting comes in. Maybe the question of them and their relationship. Something happens, but Darby Allin wins it. To me, Darby Allin is a great performer, but having him win the TNT title for me did nothing. It did not. See, and here's the thing. I don't want to be someone that's just complaining, but you look at sometimes stars that should be made that don't, and stars that are made that always just end up having runs cut short. Why is Samoa Joe somebody that gets the attention, gets the initial heat, gets the nice run, but then when it's time to take him from upper mid card to top to supreme talent, companies take him away? I don't get it. Samoa Joe, at the expense of his character and the toughness, taking an L to Darby Allin takes away a lot of his character. Darby could have suffered a loss. Dude, he's undersized. He's more of the performer. He's more of the 1-2-3 kid. You can get more out of him in terms of performances for 1-2 years before you give him these 2 and 3 title reigns. Samoa Joe was cool as the King of TV. I think you cut that off. The King of TV angle was I loved it. The King of TV. And in a span of 2 weeks, he's back to Samoa Joe. And he's still a great performer, but it just feels like you have this diamond, but you're not rubbing off the dirt enough. You're not power washing it to get the shine. You're just looking at it and go, okay, we got something, but you're not maximizing Samoa Joe. And that's how I looked at it.
Like I said, I've got a lot of mixed feelings with this. I don't know if it was the right direction to go. And Samoa Joe has basically had that issue forever and a day. Like the best he's ever been was ROH and TNA. Like anytime he's worked at a company that's a little bit bigger, it feels like once he gets almost to the top, they basically pull the chair out from underneath him, or he's saddled with injuries. So I'm not sure what the deal is with Samoa Joe right there. I did want to gauge your interest level in the Jade Cargill Red Velvet story. AEW is telling you that this is important. This is a big deal. This is something that is going to happen at some point. What I will say is Jade Cargill has gotten better the last couple of weeks.
Yes, she has.
We have shit on Jade Cargill for a while. She looks very physically imposing. She looks great. I don't like her promos. I think her promo skills suck. But her in-ring work has gotten much, much better. And I think you have a very interesting story here developing with Red Velvet. My thought process is Red Velvet will be the one to take the belt off of Jade Cargill when she gets to 50-0. Once she gets to 50 wins, Red Velvet will be the one to step in and dethrone her and take that belt from her. I like what we're doing here. I like this story. I like seeing Jade Cargill improve because I do feel like she is a megastar in the waiting. I'm interested in this. It's been a long time for me to say that I'm interested in anything Jade Cargill gives us. I'm interested in this. Are you interested, or is it just something that's going on?
I'm interested. I'm very interested. I think they've done a good job of elevating her. She's got more of a ring persona. Her matches are a little bit crisper. It sounds like some of the production with her, the producers working with her, are actually resonating with the matches that she's putting together. It makes sense now, so I do want to see it. Could it be better? Yeah. Could somebody else come in and also get the Nice rub off of winning. Britt Baker, DMD, Soraya, somebody else. We'll see. But yes, she is an imposing force that's now starting to live up to her potential. So if you start moving away from the Nia Jax persona and becoming more of a Bianca Belair, now you're talking about printing money.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, AEW wasn't just on for 4 hours this week with what we got with TBS and TNT. They also had a huge presence in New Japan.
Yes.
You had Kenny Omega taking on Will Ospreay. We're going to talk about that. You had FTR defending their IWGP World Tag Team Championships. We're going to talk about that. But I think the big thing that we both woke up to on January 4th, which was Wednesday, was Sasha Banks, a.k.a. Mercedes Moné, debuting at Wrestle Kingdom and challenging Kairi Sane. She's going to take on Kairi Sane on February 18th at New Japan Battle of the Valley show in San Jose, California. What did you make of Sasha Banks, a.k.a. Mercedes Moné's debut? Because I felt it was clunky, and there was a point because I watched it 3 times.
Yep.
The last time I watched it, I was like, man, she just sounds weird. She sounds like she's nasally. She sounds like she's stuffed up. And it sounded like she was slurring some of her words.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, is she drunk? I had to pause it, rewind it, play it back for my girlfriend. And I was like, Alyssa, does it sound like she's intoxicated to you? And she's like, she doesn't sound normal.
Yeah.
What was like? I felt like this debut left a lot to be desired. But what it did do is it did make Mercedes Moné feel like she was a star. I will say that, but I do feel like it was poorly executed. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, she felt like a star that debuted in Dubuque, Iowa. I mean, she comes out, they show her picture, and the crowd barely pops in terms of at least from the production side of it. I know it's polite,
this is the thing. In Japan, they're not allowed to cheer out loud because of COVID.
Yeah,
they're still under these COVID rules. They're not allowed to cheer out loud. And that crowd, the Tokyo, Japan usually holds like 80,000 people.
Yes.
There were only 20,000 people there.
Yes.
And they can only clap. That's done. It's the only way they can cheer is by clapping.
Exactly. So it took away from the epic nature of what I thought it would look like if it was from AEW or from going to another company. So then you have this subdued reaction. Her walk, I didn't like her outfit. That outfit wasn't suited for me. But what stinks is in WWE, when people hit the mat, they have this like enhanced microphone amplified, so it sounds like you did something. So she has this promo that's not really stinging. It's kind of drawn out a little bit. Then she does this new move. Unfortunately, the performer falls and she does a twist and it looks like a botch. So I saw it, I looked at it and I said, that move sucks. That move is something that...
Did it make you question when she's going to put the armbar in? Because Alyssa and I both were like, okay, where's the armbar? But no armbar.
No armbar. I was underwhelmed by the whole thing. It should have been special, but... It
was supposed to be like a Guri slam into a Destino, and it was Kairi Sane like either missed it or Sasha Banks botched it.
Yeah, it was bad.
It was not good.
Not executed.
Once you finish your conversation on Mercedes Moné, I do have some breaking news that I just found. So go ahead, continue on Mercedes Moné, and I'll give you some breaking news.
Yeah, it should have been better. It should have been much better executed. It wasn't. And then even when Sane hits the mat, you don't hear nothing. The way it was produced doesn't sound like she did a move. She's like, it looks like you dropped her. So it sucks. It's like, oh, she dropped her, and okay. And it also felt weird for Moné to say the word bitch on that show. It just didn't come off right.
It felt weird.
It felt weird. So I was underwhelmed. It was good to see the entrance. It was good to see her. But for the time off, F delivery.
Yeah, it was not very good at all. I was less than impressed. Real quick, some breaking news. The WWE sale process has begun, according to CNBC reports. WWE has hired JP Morgan to help facilitate a potential sale of the company. If a deal occurs, it would likely occur in the next 3 to 6 months, said the people who asked not to be named because the discussions are private. WWE plans to talk to potential buyers before it makes a decision on TV rights renewal agreements. So it looks like the process to facilitate a sale of WWE has started. The expectation is it'll be a quick process, taking 3 to 6 months. I know that sounds like it's a long time, but really when you're doing a deal of this magnitude, that is actually very, very quickly. So things are going on according to CNBC. So that did take place. I guess before we get into Kenny Omega and the Will Ospreay match, what's your reaction to that? You sound like you were absolutely shocked and floored.
I am shocked. You just never think that. Look, it's obviously in the works. Numbers have been talked about. You don't just show up. Vince comes back and you hire. No, Vince hasn't been sipping Mai Tais. His ass has been shaking his tail.
He's been working on backdoor deals.
He's been shaking his tail for some money. And look at Vince. And I just never thought he'd do it. I never thought that the company would not be in maybe it's a 49% situation. We'll see if he sells the whole company, how much it's worth. I'm floored. I just thought that forever and a day it would be Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, and then Triple H's kids running it, and it'd just be forever and ever. But maybe if you're talking $4 or $5 billion straight cash into your pocket, it's hard to turn down. But it's shocking. It'll be a new generation. I just hope that whoever buys it loves wrestling and understands what it's about. The pomp and circumstance doesn't change WrestleMania to something else, doesn't do something to just, take away the Rumble and SummerSlam and everything like that. I don't want it to be SummerSlam presented by Pepsi or SummerSlam presented by the Saudi Arabian Prince of Dubai. It's like, come on, let's just make sure it holds true to the authentic nature of entertaining wrestling that we can talk about. So I'm shocked. I'm floored. Wow.
It'll be interesting to kind of see how this unfolds. We did have some really spectacular matches at New Japan to get this back on track. Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, I think was the match of the evening for day one. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Kenny Omega ends up defeating Will Ospreay for the IWGP US Championship. Yes. Now, this is exciting, and I want to know what excites you. This is exciting to me for a couple of different reasons. I think you have the footwork for what will become an incredible story. Both of these guys are amazing athletes. Two of the best in-ring performers in generations. I think they are fantastic. And I think Kenny Omega does a really good job storytelling. I know a lot of people shit on some of his matches because it's like move, high spot. But he does a really good job telling stories. The build for this was absolutely fantastic, and it started online. It carried over to the pre-Wrestle Kingdom presser, which was absolutely fantastic. This match, Will Ospreay bled all over the place. Ooh. It was absolutely bloody. But what makes me most excited, not just for what I'm assuming will be a trilogy of great matches, what makes me most excited about this is it shows the strength of the New Japan and the AEW partnership. New Japan put one of their most prized belts, a belt that Kenny Omega was the inaugural winner of. He was the original captain of the ship. He was the first to ever wear the IWGP US Championship. They gave him that belt. He now has that belt. And here's the thing. It's not like Kenny Omega is going to be in New Japan a whole bunch to defend that belt. He will be wearing that here in the United States. He will be wearing that here on AEW television. It goes to show the strengthening of this relationship because you're not going to give one of your more prestigious, bigger belts to an outsider and let them carry it. And I think you've seen that with guys like FTR. We're going to get into FTR in a second. FTR basically carried the belts for IWGP in AEW. So I think this is a good thing for AEW, and I think it's a very good thing for New Japan, and I think it shows that there is a definitive partnership here and that there is strong footing for that partnership, and we can look forward to things like Ring of Honor New Japan, AEW New Japan. If you remember back in the day, Ring of Honor New Japan had a fantastic partnership, and it really helped get both companies over. It's what really introduced you and I to a lot of the New Japan wrestling that we love now. It was through ROH. And I think you're going to get a lot of that, and that makes me very excited. But what makes you excited about this? Is it the trilogy of the matches we could have? Is it just seeing the in-ring competitors? Is it the strengthening of that partnership like I mentioned? What gets you pumped up for this?
All of it. I think that Will Ospreay is somebody that is gaining traction and is among the most sought after performers. And you look at it and you say, just go take a look at the promo that he cut on Kenny Omega. It was real, raw, and made you want to sit there and watch an hour-long contest or so with those guys. It was a great match, great psychology, great execution. Me personally, I'm a fan of Will Ospreay. I think that it wouldn't have hurt Kenny Omega to put him over. I know you said that it sets up the trilogy or a potential series of matches that could eventually highlight Will Ospreay a little bit more. But man, because New Japan and Wrestle Kingdom has put itself on the map where early January, it's become synonymous with Wrestle Kingdom. WWE stars are there. Carl Anderson, FTR. You have great opportunities to see new debuts. So it has everything of what a big show should entail. So I loved it. Wrestle Kingdom was awesome. Make sure you go and try and find it. It's enjoyable, and it is something that you realize it has a nice mix of that foreign style wrestling that's known for New Japan versus now the new wave of great high-end big match feel. And it has the feel of like, wow, Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, when it goes down, you got to sit in front of your TV and watch it.
Yeah, this is one of the first Wrestle Kingdoms in what has felt like a very long time where it's felt very impactful, very important. This was a fantastic show. It had a big time feel to it. Now, we had another match. FTR had an incredible 2022.
Yes.
Yet FTR loses another set of belts, dropping their IWGP World Tag Team Championships to Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi. FTR previously lost their Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles to the Briscoes in a double dog collar match. And last Wednesday, Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler lost their AAA World Tag Team titles to Dragon Lee and Dralistico. I've got some news on what took place with Dragon Lee after that match was won and how that might be spoiling a little AAA AEW relationship. We'll talk about that in news and notes. Both of those losses came after FTR came up short against the Acclaim for the AEW World Tag Team titles. FTR is on a bit of a losing streak here, and it really seems like they are spiraling out of control. Do you think this is the sign of a change for FTR? Do we get a little bit of a repackage for FTR, and do they maybe take some time off and then come back as that new FTR?
No. Look, the IWGP, they weren't going to be the champions of a different company. I think that it's great. You look at it and you say what they did was they elevated themselves, and then they used their shine to elevate two other tag teams that definitely benefited from being in the ring with FTR. Now the next step is continue your climb and the story that you need to tell for FTR to win the AEW World Tag Team Championships. That'll be great. Give them a nice run. But FTR, I think, just had to shed some of those other belts. I mean, it looks gaudy when you're wearing 4 sets of belts every time you go out there. It's not needed. They did the business. They went over to Japan and dropped the titles. That was expected. I mean, I would have bet $1 million that they would not come back as the champions. Now you have to get them involved in an angle that's going to be meaningful and rewarding, whether it be with the Acclaimed or some other tag team, working their way up. But whoever they're in the ring with is going to print money. That's a tag team that's over, and whatever happens, the future is bright for FTR. This is going to be the year of FTR in my mind. Among the couple people in terms of tag teams and performers, it's going to be the year of FTR in my mind.
We'll see what happens. I think they're going to take a little bit of time off, and I think we get a little bit of a repackage. Not much. These guys are basically wrestling dudes.
Yep.
Like if you had like cloth from like the 1980s, that is these guys. They are like old school wrestling guys, but I think they do get a little bit of time off. I think they do get a little rebrand. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of belts to carry for a long time. They had a lot of companies on their shoulders, and they carried a lot of tag team divisions, and they really helped reestablish AEW as the land of tag team wrestling. And you get some of your best wrestling from AEW with their tag team, with their tag teams. And for these guys to carry the belts for multiple companies was absolutely fantastic. What was your number one story of 2022 as we now move into 2023?
Yeah, it was, for me, Vince McMahon. The
had to be, right?
Yep, the retirement, the going away, the allegations that surfaced, the emphasis on who this person was. I think was the story of 2022. It's unfortunate. A lot of great wrestling stories in regards to characters taking steps forward, debuts, WWE now having Triple H as the creative director. A lot of great things happening, but Vince McMahon still permeates everything going on with WWE as he moved on and allegedly took time off to retire. But now we know that a lot of things have been working on behind the scenes, and now Vince McMahon is going to be at the forefront or part of one of the biggest negotiations of an entertainment company of all time. So Vince McMahon, you sly devil, you still find ways to get yourself in the news, and it goes to show you that, hey, any press is good press, and Vince McMahon definitely loves some press.
Absolutely. I'm going to agree with you. Vince McMahon retiring was mind-blowing. It was shocking. It was something that we talked about for, I think, a month after it was reported. So that was the biggest story of 2022. He kicks off 2023 in only a way that Vince McMahon can. We'll see what happens going forward. Again, news breaking a few minutes ago for us while we're recording that NBC is reporting that WWE has initiated the process to sell WWE, and a deal could be done in as short as 3 to 6 months. So we'll see what happens there. What was your show of the week this week? I'm going to give my nod to Dynamite. I thought Dynamite was a great show.
I loved the promo with Bryan Danielson and MJF. It kicked off what I thought is going to be a great feud. Iron Man match. I want to see it. So, yes, Dynamite was the show of the week.
Awesome. You want some news and notes real quick?
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
All right, with WrestleMania approaching, there are booking ideas being floated out, and one has massive implications. According to a report from WrestlingNews.co, there was a report WrestleMania 39 Night 1 is currently planned to be main evented by Seth Rollins versus either Cody Rhodes or Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. Again, we talked about splitting the belts up. We're coming back to that right now. There are no additional details regarding at what point the WWE Championship may be broken off from the WWE Universal Championship to set up this match. Sticking with that report, Night 2 has a massive main event as well. WrestlingNews.co sources noted that Night 2 main event is tentatively scheduled to feature Roman Reigns defending the Universal Championship against one of two epic possibilities. Ideally, The Rock would be the main event for WrestleMania 39. However, it remains to be determined if he will be able to appear. The report states that if he can't, Cody Rhodes will fill that spot. Also, Triple H has to work around Cody Rhodes' timeline as he recovers from his pec surgery. Seems like he will be a go for WrestleMania. A new report and Twitter video package has a new match coming to the Royal Rumble this year. According to WWE, the Royal Rumble will host not only the title matches, but also the debut of the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match. We've seen some promos for this. Per the advert, the match is when it's Mountain Dew's Pitch Black match, anything can happen. Nobody really knows what the heck's going to happen with this match. Like, it sounds like it's going to be just very, very dark. Sounds like Bray Wyatt's going to be in this match. We'll see what happens. This is what happens when a pop company has a ton of money and throws it at a company like WWE. WWE will gobble up all that money. A major WrestleMania match was scrapped, but may have been replaced with something better. And these plans may have also changed. We'll see what takes place. WrestlingNews.co reported that plans for a match between former SmackDown Women's champ Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch has been scrapped. While the plans for Lynch at Mania have not been confirmed, the report notes that WWE is now planning to have Rousey, at the time, defend her SmackDown Women's Championship against Rhea Ripley. We know these things have changed because Charlotte Flair is now the champion. So the thought process of Rousey, Ripley, I think that was really good. We might end up getting Rhea Ripley taking on Charlotte Flair to avenge that loss that she had when she was in NXT. That'll be an interesting play. We'll see how that kind of works out. They do have, with Charlotte Flair coming back, you have a couple different possibilities with the belt coming off of Ronda Rousey. We'll see kind of where this goes. WrestlingNews.co also confirmed some rumored matches for WrestleMania 39. Here's what we've got so far. Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes or Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. For the WWE Universal Championship, it'll be Roman Reigns versus The Rock or Cody Rhodes. The undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships will be the Usos versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. There's the idea that Logan Paul versus John Cena might take place. Logan Paul still recovering from his injury that he suffered in his match against Roman Reigns when they were doing Crown Jewel. So we'll see what happens there. Now, a big signing by WWE was announced last week on Wednesday night. Triple H's WWE signing was officially announced December 28, 2022 at AAA's Noche de Campeones event when Dragon Lee announced that he was headed to WWE. Remember, I mentioned that Dragon Lee and Dralistico beat FTR for the AAA titles. Moments after that, Dragon Lee announced that he was going to WWE, that he had signed with WWE. This is monumental because this is the first time that a signed WWE wrestler has actually beat an AEW signed wrestler. It feels like there's a little bit of bad water here because AAA could have just had FTR vacate the titles, or could have just had FTR give up the belts. Dragon Lee and Dralistico did not have to beat them because they immediately beat them. Dragon Lee announced that he was going to WWE, and then they vacated the titles. So there was really no need for that match to actually take place. It feels like there might be some cracks in the foundation of the AAA AEW relationship. Trying to get Dragon Lee over to WWE was Finn Balor. Finn Balor was really integral in getting Dragon Lee over. Now, there are reports that this was not the first major signing from WWE. There are going to be more signings like this for WWE, grabbing guys, big name guys, like a guy like Dragon Lee, a guy like Dralistico, and bringing them into NXT and basically making them stars. Now, that may change a little bit because when this report came out, Vince wasn't in control and there wasn't going to necessarily be a sale of the company. So some of these things may be on pause. We'll have to wait and see. Now, AJ Styles will be sidelined for a little bit. Last week, following a scary top rope spot, the referee threw up the X signal while Styles was down on the outside. Styles was helped to the back after the match, with the popular star reportedly struggling to put weight on his left foot. Due to the fall, AJ Styles suffered a broken ankle and will be out of the ring for at least 2 months. So he won't be moving around anytime soon. Sticking with hurt superstars, at the end of this week's Monday Night Raw, Seth Rollins had trouble getting to the back at the end of the match, needed to be helped. In the match for the United States Championship, Rollins goes up to pick Austin Theory, and it looks like his right knee buckles underneath him. And then it seemed to bother him as that match continued. The match ended quickly after that. After he was attempting to leave the ringside area, he could hardly walk, getting help from Corey Graves and one of the referees to make it to the back. So we'll have to see what happens with Seth Rollins. Could be storyline, could be a legit injury. He looked like if it's storyline, he sold it really, really well. So we'll see what happens there. And that's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Make sure you stay in tune, stay in touch with what's going on in the world of wrestling by following our podcast. Comes out each and every weekend. Make sure that anywhere you listen to your favorite broadcast, your audio content, type in Detroit Sports Podcast, you hit that subscribe button, and boom, when our content drops, it hits your feed just like that. Nothing extra you got to do as we break down Detroit sports, the Lions, Pistons, Wings, Tigers, the world of professional wrestling. It's going to be a big year in wrestling. AEW rebranded. They did a great thing with their set. They're trying to take things to a new level. They put the stars that people want to see on Dynamite in match after match after match that had interest and great storytelling. This is good. Now that WWE is looking to be in this direction, you don't want to miss out. So stay tuned to all the latest episodes of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast.